Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vibes. And I'd like to welcome here Mike Handcock, who is a speaker, author, musician, producer, director, and a publisher, and I imagine a whole lot more. So we're going to get to know him, have a great conversation. Mike, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I was born in Australia, but I haven't lived there for since I was very young, Kyle. I was orphaned at 15, and so I lived the last couple of years of my high school, with my best friend and his parents. And I was a professional musician for 12 years. For some of that, I lived in LA. And then I moved into corporate after that, got a real job, lasted 18 years, and then broke away from that when I was 40. So since then, I've been doing all the things that you basically said in the introduction. So, and we've got clients in more than 50 countries, travel regularly. Like when I say regularly, this year's been light. I think we've been in 11 or 12 countries this year. Last year it was 21. So I'm a road warrior. So I love the road. I love meeting people. I love new cities, new places, new things.
You talked about losing your parents. How did it affect you?
Well, it was a shock. So I was an only child to a solo mother. My mother and father got divorced when I was very young. I don't really remember him at all. And then when I was 15, I came home from sports practice and found her dead. And I didn't have
Oh,
aunties, uncles, grandparents, anything like that. So I really had nowhere to go. So as my best friend's parents said, like, well, we'll take you for the last 2 years of high school. And then the day I got my results, my friend's father came to me and said, "Did you pass?" And I'm like, just. And he goes, "Okay, that's great. Get a job, be out in 2 weeks." So we've done as much as we can. So um, I don't know that. I think when I look back now, I can see how it shaped my life, how it's made me incredibly independent. It's made me value friendships and relationships a lot. So I think that's really the good side. It means I don't have to buy a lot of people Christmas presents. That's also a good side. But but apart from that, I think obviously there's a lot I missed out on as well. But luckily, I don't really know what that is.
I know some people will kind of go into a cocoon when things like that happens, and some say, I've got to pull up my bootstraps and move forward. So I can only
I think you can
imagine.
you can go to drugs and alcohol when that sort of stuff happens. And I think what happened for me is that my friends were just really amazing. Like, a few of them were musicians. We are all just learning. I was a guitar player. My best friend was a drummer. So we sort of hung out, but we never really got into really bad stuff. I mean, we caused a lot of problems, but we didn't get on drugs or anything like that. So I think that was a big thing. And whilst we got on alcohol, I don't, that was just on Saturday nights. It never consumed us, even as teenagers. So we were very much Saturday drinkers. So I think I really was very lucky with my friends.
Now, you're a speaker, and from what I saw in your biography, you've been a lot of places. How many altogether?
114 countries,
Wow.
and 20 of them more than 20 times. So, like, I've been to India 22 times. I've been to Malaysia over 40 times, Singapore more than 50, the States probably 40 or 50. So yeah, I've been to a lot of places a lot. So I really do understand, which is a great thing. I think it's, this is what life's about. Understand a lot of cultures and have a lot of friends that are all around the world, which of course makes it very difficult to see them all, but that's another issue, right?
Mhm. When you have to do that, I mean, be in all these different countries and dealing with different types of people, does that affect how you approach your speaking?
Not at all. Um, One would it's sort of like this. If you go and watch AC/DC, do you expect a different set list in England than in America? No, not really. So you're sort of bringing out your same things. Occasionally you shape it different. Different audiences have different senses of humor. Um, so, for instance, Chinese humor is a little darker. than say New Zealand humor. New Zealand humor is very family orientated type of humor and stuff like that. Um, you can swear a lot in America. That's acceptable. It's not acceptable in many countries. So, like, I don't swear from the stage at all. But actually, I've sort of eradicated a lot of my swearing out of my life. But I have to tell you, it's not really different. I mean, it's so funny because I remember I was in Bahrain or somewhere once, and I use a lot of music when I talk because I'm a musician. I'm never too far away from a musical instrument. Like there's one there, one of my Les Pauls. But the guy goes, "Oh, you can't use music here because we don't believe in it in our religion." I go, "That's not true. There's a lot of rhythm in your religion." He goes, "Oh, yeah, that's true." I goes, "I'll go and use your music." So it's sometimes you get that, but it's sort of thing. But for the most part, it's exactly the same.
What kind of music do you play?
I'm a rock guy, you know, uh, but I love all sorts of music. I really appreciate all sorts of music, but I grew up on Kiss, Cheap Trick, Def Leppard, those sort of bands. So that Aerosmith, those were the bands I had, and then into yeah, there you go, brother. Hey, check this out. You're going to love this. This was a gift of mine. I've just got two of them here from a client of ours in Colombia.
Oh,
It's
I
it's
got
Kiss
those.
Pezzas. Oh my God. I've never seen these before where I live. These are fantastic. We've eaten all the treats out of them, but yeah, I you know I'm a huge Kiss fan. I mean, I think Paul Stanley's probably one of my mentors.
Oh, wow. I noticed that you produced and directed a movie called Dreamcatchers. Did you
Yes.
contribute to that soundtrack?
I think it's 90% mine.
Oh,
There's a
wow.
couple of my friends on there as well, but yeah, it's 90% my soundtrack. And I really enjoyed that because, you know, I think with bands I've done about 11 or 12 albums maybe. So do it, but never done a soundtrack. So that was a really good thing to do. And it was a lot of fun and it was challenging too because you have different moods in a film than what you do, say, in a genre of music.
How many different bands have you played with?
Primarily, well, I played in what I'd call three bands, but primarily one. And I'd say that's made a bit of a resurgence in recent years. In fact, my wife and I were Googling it a few years ago and we found fan sites in Argentina and Germany and Cyprus and that I was talking to the other guitar player last Christmas. He lives in Australia, and he was saying he got contacted by people in a town in Brazil that once a month they have parties and dress up like we used to and play our album. Okay. So because of that, we're in the middle of writing songs for a new album, the 40-year anniversary album from the first one.
I gotta know, what does that feel like? I mean, actually, how does it feel?
Which part?
I mean, knowing that you have fans out there like that.
It's it's really good because it's the reason that I think that I wanted to be a musician in the first place, and it's the reason I'm a speaker. Is that you know it's so funny because you look at Ozzy Osbourne or Lemmy or Gene Simmons or somebody like that. And in their youth, they could be quite badasses, Gene with the women and Ozzy with drugs or whatever. And now they're old men. They're really philosophical, spiritual leaders. It's like it's really weird. That there's a lot of philosophy that comes out of them. I was watching. I'm a big fan of Rick Beato, and I was watching his interview with Dave Gilmour the other day. And I was listening to what Dave Gilmour was saying. I go, "There's another one." He's very much a mentor and a spiritual leader in many respects these days. So, I think the concept of fans for me is it's lovely to have something that sticks with somebody and they remember an important time of their life because of something that you happen to write that they connected with at that time. We all have the songs that we got married to or broke up to or got our first job to or hung out with our buddies, drinking beers on a Saturday night with and all of that sort of stuff. And I think that part of it's great. And as a speaker, it's very similar. This time it's books and it's messages. It's a core message. And speaking is a funny thing because it's sort of like being a musician, except you don't stay up as late, you don't drink as much, and you don't have to throw the television out of the hotel room to prove yourself.
Right. What amazes me is I've talked to musicians from back there in the 80s, like JJ French from Twisted Sister, and then you find out that their label kind of put this persona of a party band. These guys are getting drunk
Yep,
and getting high. And then you find out that they really weren't that way in their personal lives. And you think, oh man, JJ French, I bet he could put some beer away. And the guy didn't drink or do drugs. Neither did Gene Simmons, you know.
exactly. Well, or
And
Paul
they're
Stanley.
family guys.
Paul drinks a little bit of wine, but that's it. And it's interesting because growing up as a kid, I mean, I saw AC/DC a little bit. I mean, I can remember going to a hotel as a 14-year-old and seeing AC/DC and Angus Young running along tables, kicking guys' beers out of their hands as he's playing, and Bon Scott punching anybody who got in the way. And so, I mean, that's sort of how we grew up. But Angus and Malcolm don't drink. I mean, Angus has pots of tea on the side of the stage. So when you see him go off stage during a concert, he's getting oxygen and drinking tea. That's what he does. That's what he's always done. And yet they've got this badass persona. Bon Scott might have made up for it, but it's not always the case. And it wasn't the case in my band either. Actually, in any of the bands that I played in, there was a few social drinks. Only once did I have a bass player that was doing coke, but apart from that, nobody touched drugs. It wasn't really a thing.
I mean, you did have your bad actors back then that they did get heavy into drinking and drugs and they ended up washed up or dead or what have you. But there were those that they didn't do that because they focused on the music. And
Exactly right.
and you mentioned being an author and you're a publisher. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, we sold our publishing company a few years ago. Now we publish a magazine these days through another company. But I started writing books because I always wanted to be a published author, and I wrote the first book and I self-released it, and then for my second book I got a deal with Penguin, and then I realized, hang on, these guys are taking all the money and they do nothing. So I think I published two books through them, and then I went back to self-publish, and then we started a publishing company. We published for many other authors. But during COVID, Kyle, I started writing novels, and that was a really cool experience. It was really cool. I've written three. They're in a series. They're action adventures, sort of a cross between Dan Brown, Clive Cussler, that sort of feel, based on ancient wisdom, which is one of my passions. But it was so funny because writing non-fiction books, I guess I'd got so used to it. I mean, I was getting like 6 or 8 edits per book. And my wife, Landi, said to me, get the best editor that you can afford to edit your fiction books. So I actually hired Dan Brown's editor, the lady who actually did, not the Da Vinci Code, but did Angels and Demons, I think his second book. She lives in Oxford. That should tell you a thing or two. 19,000 edits in my first book. Actually, I was sharing it with somebody before. That's a copy of it there. It's called Truth Seekers. But 19,000 edits. It was like crazy.
And you're a spiritual guy.
Yeah, I mean, I like aspects of all religions, but I don't believe in the dogma of religions. I think my wife summed it up best when she said to one of her family members who was suggesting that we go to church more often, she said, "Why do I need a broker to talk to God? Why don't I just talk to him?"
That's what
And
Jesus is
so,
for.
exactly, right? And I mean, people go, "Oh, well, was Jesus Christian? Did Jesus go to church?" No, Jesus was the church, right? He was the ultimate conduit. So I think for me, I've got a great relationship with God and with Jesus, but I'm not a church goer, but I've studied the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Bible, the Corpus Hermetica, the Mayan prophecies. The list goes on. So I've studied the Tao Te Ching, the I Ching, a lot of the ancient books because I find them fascinating and I find them to be profound. And there's a lot in there that we should take notice of today.
Well, I find a lot of people that are successful are on a spiritual path.
Yeah.
Do you think they go hand in hand?
Well, I think it comes down to you realize that you're not going to get buried with your Mercedes Benz or your beach house, right?
Right.
You're going to get buried with your memories, and the memories that go with you are probably the ones where you contributed most and loved the most. So, if you read a lot of stuff from hospice, people always say when they're in their last few days, oh, I should have worked less. I should have done more. I should have traveled more. And that's all a spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, travel is a great spiritual teacher and to go into cultures and learn from the cultures and look at the ancient sites. I mean, you live in the US. Most people in the US are not aware even of 5% of the incredible ancient profound sites in the United States. I mean, next year we'll be in New England with a great author who's a friend of mine there who's written 18 books on this subject. And we're doing a tour with some of our clients called America Before Columbus. And we're going to be showing them where the Templar Knights landed, where the Romans were in America, where the Phoenicians were, the Minoans. I mean, you've only got to go up to Lake Superior and to the tin mines and look there. The Minoans mined that site in 1500 BC and took it back to Crete to create weapons for the Bronze Age. So there's a lot. That's what I love about the world is there's always a mystery somewhere to be unplugged.
Well, we're running out of time. So one last thing before we go. There's folks out there like me. I got to through high school and didn't get a whole lot more education after that, but we're looking to be successful in life.
Yep.
We need some advice and something motivational that we can take with us.
Great. Well, firstly, I don't think it matters how much education you've got. I didn't go to university till I was 33. I couldn't afford to. I think what matters is that you experience life. But to answer your question, I think do what's in your heart. Don't let anybody tell you can't. If you want to play guitar, go and learn to play guitar. If you want to go and live in Paris, go and live in Paris. If you want to, start a business selling pizzas, start a business selling pizzas. Don't let anybody tell you can't. The reason why when you look at my bio and you said, I've done a whole lot of things and probably a whole lot more, that's true. And the reason is because I never let anybody tell me I couldn't. I just like the film. I didn't have any idea how to make a film, but it's a pretty good film. I didn't have any idea how to write a book, but I've written a lot of books. I could play a few chords on guitar and I managed to put a band together. And as we grew and developed, we did some albums and they did okay, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up, not put you down. Don't set a place at the table for people who are going to put you down, even if they're in your family. And the other thing is, life is not a destination, it's a journey. And some of us make millions of dollars at 21 and then are bored for the rest of our life. I mean, what's there left for Justin Bieber, right? And others of us find our passion when we're 55 or 60 years old. And I don't think it matters.
What is your website?
So if anybody wants to check us out, they can come to our website, which is circleofexcellence.biz. If you're in business for yourself, there's a great assessment on the front page that you can do, and it gives you a report and lots of help and tells you how to improve yourself in business. And otherwise, just come there and register, subscribe, hang out, and maybe come to an event we're doing somewhere around the world, because we've run over 3,000 events, and we've done them pretty much in every continent except Antarctica, and we've got a few planned for next year. So, Kyle, thank you so much for your time and doing this for people. I think it's really important that people have got perspective on life, bit of music, and passion from the people that you bring on your show. I really appreciate it myself.
Oh, it's really been my pleasure. And if people want to check out your music, where can they do that?
They can go to iTunes. Is probably as easy as anywhere. Just Google my name, or go into iTunes and go to Mike Handcock, Handcock, or the band, which was Charlie Brown, which is not the same as the cartoon character, because we would have got sued. But we wanted a band that was a heavy rock band that had a vibe like Cheap Trick, so we chose that name when we were in our 20s, and so it's Charlie, Charley, and Brown has an E on the end of it. So and you'll find that on iTunes as well.
I'm going to put your links in the description just to make it easier for folks to find you. Mike, I appreciate your time, man. This has really been great.
Thanks, Kyle, and thanks, everyone.
Yes, I definitely want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. For my regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network